The room buzzed with tension, thick with the weight of unspoken fear. Around a circular table in the dimly lit war chamber of the Grat Syndicate's flagship, Commander Zather leaned forward, his taloned fingers tapping the table in a slow, deliberate rhythm. A holographic display floated above the center, replaying a haunting sequence from their last planetary skirmish. A high-ranking general had been vaporized mid-command. No warning, no discernible enemy. Just a single precise shot. The camera froze, zooming in on a faint glint from a ridge half a mile away. The glint vanished in an instant. Phantom, Zather growled, his voice low and gravelly. One human with a weapon, and he's undone operations worth trillions of credits. Dozens of our best soldiers gone. Seated around the table were the galaxy's most notorious bounty hunters. Their names alone struck fear across star systems. Kragnock, the living tank with reinforced exoskeletal armor, cracked his knuckles, the sound like boulders grinding together. "You dragged us here to handle a human?" he sneered. "I've taken down whole platoons of them before breakfast." Zather shot him a sharp look. "This isn't just any human. The others were soldiers. Predictable. Phantom is something else. He's a sniper, a ghost. He doesn't miss, and he's never been caught. Underestimate him, and you'll end up like General Thrax." Slivik, the lithe, reptilian assassin, hissed in amusement. "All this fuss over one lone human. Your fear is showing, Commander." A low chuckle rippled through the group until Zather slammed a clawed fist onto the table, silencing them. He gestured at the hologram, which now displayed a map of Valeran 7, a barren wasteland littered with craters and jagged cliffs. "This is where Phantom was last seen. We've confirmed his presence here. Your mission is simple. Eliminate him. Do it fast, do it clean. Failure is not an option." Thurnik, the sharpshooter, leaned back in his chair, a smirk playing across his angular face. "I've never missed a target. Let's see if this Phantom can say the same." Zather's mandibles twitched in irritation. "Remember, humans are resourceful. Their strength lies in adaptation and unpredictability. You might have the advantage in tech and numbers, but do not. Spare us the lecture," Kragnock interrupted, rising to his towering height. His shadow fell over the table as he hefted his plasma cannon onto his shoulder. "We'll handle it. Let's move." Zather watched them file out of the room, his unease growing. He had seen Phantom's handiwork, studied it frame by frame. There was no margin for error with this human. Later, as the bounty hunter's sleek dropship descended onto Valeran 7, the arid winds howled across the desolate expanse. Thermal scans lit up their monitors, revealing a faint heat signature nestled in a ridge ahead. Slivik activated his cloaking device, his form shimmering and vanishing into thin air. "This will be over before you know it," he said over the comm. On the ridge, a lone figure lay perfectly still, rifle cradled in his arms, his breathing steady. Through the scope, he watched the approaching team, calm and calculating. "They missed," he muttered, adjusting his aim. "I won't." The bounty hunters moved in a staggered formation, their advanced sensors sweeping the barren landscape. Kragnock lumbered ahead, his seismic scanners pulsing every few seconds, detecting faint tremors beneath the cracked surface. "Heat signature is faint," he grumbled, "but it's there. No human can hide forever." Slivik's voice came over the comms, sharp and confident. "Keep your eyes open. Humans are like vermin. They thrive on misdirection. I'll scout ahead." He activated his cloaking device, vanishing from view. Thurnik climbed to higher ground, a ridge overlooking the suspected position of their target. His rifle was a masterpiece of alien engineering, capable of firing energy projectiles faster than any primitive human weapon. He adjusted the scope, scanning the rocky terrain below. "If this so-called Phantom tries anything, I'll have his head in my sights before he knows it." The first sign of trouble came when they found a small campfire, its embers still warm. Scattered around were bullet casings and fragments of gear, as if someone had abandoned their post in a hurry. Kragnock scoffed. "Amateur mistake. He's sloppy." Slivik, still cloaked, moved ahead silently. His thermal vision picked up a prone figure lying among the rocks. "I've got him," he whispered. Heat signature confirmed. Looks like he's trying to hide in plain sight. Pathetic. He crept closer, drawing his blade, but something nagged at the edge of his senses. The figure wasn't moving. His sensors flickered. Heat was coming from the ground, not the body. Realization dawned too late. The explosion rocked the area, a controlled detonation that sent debris flying in all directions. Slivik stumbled back, his cloaking field sputtering as he regained his footing. It's a decoy, he snarled. Before anyone could react, a single gunshot echoed across the valley. The sound was sharp, almost surgical. From his perch, Thurning flinched, but he wasn't fast enough. The bullet struck with deadly precision, punching through his scope and into his skull. His body toppled backward, lifeless. Sniper! Kragnock roared, throwing up a shield to cover his position. We're exposed. He fired blindly in the direction of the shot, his plasma cannon scorching the rocks, but there was no visible target. Slivik scrambled for cover, his nerves fraying. How the hell did he get the angle? Thurnick was covered. Kragnock growled in frustration. He's moving. This isn't some random grunt. He's toying with us? Far off in the distance, hidden among the jagged cliffs, Phantom adjusted his position, the barrel of his rifle cool and steady. He watched through the scope as the alien team fell into disarray. Calculations ran through his mind. Wind speed, distance, next target. Kragnock's seismic scanner began to pick up movement again, but it was faint, almost ghost-like. Slivik hissed, his voice edged with panic. We're not dealing with a man. This is a predator. Another shot cracked the air, hitting Kragnock's cannon, disabling it. Sparks erupted from the weapon, forcing him to toss it aside. He's pinning us down? Kragnock shouted. Phantom remained calm, shifting to a new vantage point. He watched as the bounty hunters argued over their next move, their confidence shattered. The game had begun, and he was in control. Kragnock gritted his teeth, his massive hands gripping his secondary weapon, a compact plasma launcher. His armor hissed as its emergency systems recalibrated, compensating for the earlier damage. He's close, he barked, scanning the jagged landscape with sharp, narrowed eyes. I can feel it. Slivik, crouching low and fully cloaked again, hissed through the comms. You don't feel him. That's the problem. This human is operating on a level you can't even comprehend. He doesn't hunt the way you're used to. We're his prey now. Enough! Kragnock snapped. Stay in position and let him come to us. Suddenly, their comms crackled, and a low, distorted voice filtered through. One down, two left. I hope you're smarter than your sharpshooter. The two aliens froze. The voice was calm, deliberate, carrying an undertone of mockery. Slivik's claws dug into the dirt as he hissed. He's hacked our channel. How is that possible? I told you, Kragnock growled. This isn't some backwater grunt. He's been planning this from the start. Slivik's breathing quickened as he scanned his surroundings. Every shadow seemed to shift, every rock a potential hiding spot. His cloaking device shimmered faintly in the harsh light, a sign of its power beginning to wane. He muttered, more to himself than anyone else. This is a message. He wants us to know we're being watched. Before Kragnock could reply, a loud metallic clang echoed in the distance. His seismic scanner showed movement, a small blip darting through a narrow ravine to their right. Without hesitation, he aimed his plasma launcher and fired. The resulting explosion sent shards of rock and dust flying into the air. I've got him! Kragnock roared, charging forward to confirm the kill. He reached the blast zone, but instead of finding a body, he found a small, metallic device sparking in the dirt. It was a heat emitter, deliberately placed to draw him in. His realization came too late. The ground beneath him erupted, a controlled detonation sending him crashing into the walls of the ravine. The rocks shifted, collapsing onto him in a thunderous roar. Slivik, still cloaked and watching from a distance, saw Kragnock pinned beneath tons of debris, his armor struggling to keep him alive. Help me! Kragnock bellowed, his voice laced with pain and rage. His plasma launcher lay useless a few meters away, just out of reach. Slivik hesitated. For the first time in his career, fear had taken hold. The human wasn't just killing them. He was dismantling them, piece by piece, exploiting their every weakness. From his concealed position, Phantom watched through his scope, assessing the situation. He allowed Kragnock a moment of hope, watching the alien strain against the rubble, inching closer to freedom. Then, with a single precise shot, he ended it. Slivik flinched at the sound, his blood running cold. "Kragnock," he whispered, but there was no reply. The comm crackled again, and Phantom's voice returned, calm and unrelenting. "Your turn." Slivik bolted, his cloaking device flickering as it struggled to keep up with his frantic movements. He no longer cared about the mission. The objective had shifted from hunting to surviving. As he ran, he noticed something out of place. His dropship, his escape, was visible on the horizon, but it looked wrong. Sparks flickered from the engines, and the ramp hung open awkwardly. His worst fears were confirmed when he approached. The controls had been sabotaged, wires cut with surgical precision. The realization hit him like a blow. Phantom had planned every step of this. From the traps to the comm interference, every move had been calculated to push them toward inevitable failure. Slivik slammed his fist against the hull, his breathing ragged. He was alone now, and the Predator was still out there, watching, waiting. Slivik lay still, his breath shallow as he pressed himself against the cool rock. He was exposed now. His cloaking device was useless, its energy reserve spent. Every sound around him seemed amplified. The whistle of the wind through the crags, the faint shift of gravel underfoot, even the distant call of alien wildlife. But the sound he dreaded most, the subtle crack of Phantom's rifle, never came. His instinct screamed at him to move, but he knew better. Phantom wasn't chasing him. He was waiting. Every step Slivik took was being tracked. Every moment of hesitation another opportunity for the sniper to draw him into a trap. The comms were dead silent now, Phantom's voice absent for the first time. It was more unnerving than his taunts. Slivik strained his senses, desperate for a clue, a hint of where the human was. Instead, all he had was the emptiness of the battlefield. His mind raced through options. The dropship was compromised, his weapons were nearly depleted, and his team was gone. Survival demanded creativity, and desperation had a way of sharpening instincts. He scanned the rocky terrain, searching for anything he could use. Then he spotted it, a series of jagged cliffs in the distance. The terrain there was treacherous, with narrow pathways and steep inclines. It would be nearly impossible for Phantom to maintain his long-range advantage. Slivik would force him into close quarters, where speed and strength would triumph over precision. He moved cautiously, keeping low, using the rocks for cover. He avoided the open ground, weaving through the crags with deliberate care. Every so often, he paused, scanning his surroundings for any sign of Phantom. The sniper's silence gnawed at him, but he pressed on. As he approached the cliffs, his confidence began to grow. Phantom might have outsmarted Kragnock and outgunned Thurnik, but close combat was different. Slivik had spent decades mastering the art of stealth and blade work. He could end this human up close, where all his fancy calculations meant nothing. Reaching the base of the cliffs, Slivik scaled the first incline, his claws digging into the stone. The path narrowed as he ascended, forcing him to move single file. It was dangerous, but it also meant Phantom would have fewer angles of attack. Halfway up, a faint sound caught his attention, a slight shift of gravel above him. He froze, his muscles tensing as his eyes darted upward. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sudden rush, a small device tumbled down the slope, landing just feet away. Smoke erupted, thick and choking, filling the narrow pathway. Slivik coughed, his vision obscured as he stumbled forward. The smoke wasn't just a distraction, it was laced with something. His movements slowed, his limbs felt heavier. Through the haze, a figure emerged. Phantom, rifle slung over his shoulder, held a sidearm aimed directly at Slivik. His expression was unreadable, calm and methodical, as always. Slivik roared, pushing through the lethargy. He drew his blade, lunging forward with everything he had left. The human sidestepped the strike effortlessly, firing a single shot into Slivik's knee. The alien collapsed, his leg giving out beneath him. Phantom stepped back, keeping his weapon trained on the bounty hunter. "You could have run," he said, his tone devoid of malice. "You had the chance." Slivik spat, his vision swimming as the effects of the smoke deepened. "You think this is over? More will come. They'll hunt you to the ends of the galaxy." Phantom crouched down, his gaze steady. "They'll fail, just like you did." Slivik tried to lunge again, but his body refused to obey. Phantom stood, holstering his weapon. He didn't deliver the final blow. He didn't need to. The smoke had done its job, and Slivik's strength was fading fast. As the alien's vision darkened, Phantom vanished into the haze, his silhouette disappearing into the jagged cliffs. Slivik's last thought wasn't of victory or vengeance. It was of the terrifying realization that he had never stood a chance.